I closed 23 deals last year using one simple Facebook ad, and having spent over $1 million on generating motivated seller leads ourselves, I think I can confidently show you what's working in today's market and what's not. And in this video, I want to show you the biggest mistake agents make when running Facebook ads, which loses them thousands of dollars. The simple equation you must understand to actually scale your business, and how this ad makes me 2 to 3 times the average commissions on one deal. So let's start with why most agents are just throwing money at Facebook to never ever see a return. And I'll be honest, I made the same mistake for years. So what's the thing most agents are missing? Well, they're offering the wrong thing. Most agents are out here doing exactly what all the gurus and brokerage trainings told you to do. You know the one, want to know what your home is worth? Click here to get your free home evaluation. And it sounds great on paper, right? It's clean, it's professional, doesn't sound too pushy. You can even make a nice little landing page for it, or they can just go to Zillow or Redfin and likely get the same number, right? And how often have you had that seller say, well, Zillow said my home was worth X, and you cringe, and we all know why, right? But here's the problem. A home evaluation doesn't solve anything for the seller, right? Imagine for a moment that you're sick as a dog. I'm talking 104-degree fever. You drag yourself to the doctor, and instead of giving you anything to make you feel better, they hand you a pamphlet on why you might have a fever. It sounds ridiculous, right? Well, that's what a home evaluation ad is. It's a report. It's not a resolution. Let's pretend for a second that you're the seller and you're stressed out. Maybe you're behind on payments or going through a divorce. Maybe you've had a death in the family. Maybe your house needs work and you just don't know where to start. What's going to help you more? A vague number that might be right, but we all know it's not. Or someone coming to you saying, hey, we can buy your house as is, no showings, no repairs, and close when you're ready. I mean, come on, that one's just a no-brainer. One's a solution, and the other's just more questions for the seller. And I say this because I did the same thing for years. I ran those home evaluation ads. They looked good. They even got clicks, but the people filling them out, they weren't serious. They were top of funnel sellers that took 6 to 12 months to convert 1 out of 100 leads. They were more curious than serious, and curiosity just doesn't convert. And once we realized that, we changed everything. We started running ads that spoke directly to the seller's pain. And more importantly, we gave them a clear solution. And our ads were all directed to get a real cash offer in 24 hours. Sell your house as is, no agents, no repairs. Guaranteed easiest way to sell your house today. And I'm telling you, these ads work because they're speaking to what the seller actually wants. They don't want to know what their house might be worth. They want to know what someone's actually willing to pay for it now. So if you've been running those old school boilerplate home evaluation ads, it's probably why your cost per lead is so high. It's why you're chasing ghosts. The best Facebook ads don't give people information. They give them a path forward, okay? That's the difference, and the current ad you're running is why your business isn't able to scale. But before you throw money at ads, you got to understand this one thing so you can scale your real estate business well into the 6 figures. And what is this thing? It's an equation. But don't worry, this is so simple that you're going to learn it in just seconds, and this will change literally how you look at all the ad spend you will ever do in your real estate business. And if you want to follow along, you can download this calculator in the description below. Here it is. What is your cost per deal? And how much do you make when you close one, otherwise known as your cost of acquisition, or CAC, as Alex Hormozi would say. This is the equation that our entire business is based off of, and it's the reason we've been able to scale up while most agents are stuck doing 3 to 5 deals a year. Let me break it down. Right now, Endeavor, one of the most competitive real estate markets in the country, it takes us about 23 leads to close one deal. Now, on average, we're paying $50 to $60 per lead, depending on the platform and depending on the time of year. So let's round up. Let's say it costs us $60 per lead times 23 leads. That's $1,380 to get one closing. And here's the best part. That's a deal that brings in a commission check of $12,000 to $15,000 or more. And actually, a third of all of our deals are making us about 2 to 3 times this amount, but I'll hit that in a moment. So we're getting 10x return on ad spend. For every $1,000 we put in, we're getting $10,000 back. That's a business I can scale all day long. But here's where most agents go wrong. They're not tracking any of this. You boost a post here, you run a what's your home worth ad there, and they never stop to ask what's my actual cost per deal. And if you're not tracking it, trust me, your competition is. There are investors, flippers, teams, agents right now who know exactly what they're willing to pay to get a signed contract in your market, and they're not afraid to spend more than you. In fact, I'll spend up to $4,000 per deal all day long. Why? Because my commissions are high, because I know my conversion rate, and because I know the system works. But if you're still afraid to spend even $500 on lead gen, or you don't know what you can spend or what you need to spend, you're going to lose every single time to someone who does. Even if you're cold calling, right? You need to track your numbers. I hear this all the time. Cold calling is free. It's only free if your time is free, okay? Let's break it down. If your dialer is, say, $300 a month, and you spend 4 hours a day cold calling, and it takes you 40 hours of cold calling per deal, which would probably be really, 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 really good, okay? And you make $12,000 per commission check. You need to calculate it how much your time is worth. Are you worth $50 an hour? I hope you kind of think so. Well, at $50 per hour plus $300 in software costs, that's $50 times 40 hours. That equals $2,000 plus $300 in software. That's a cost of acquisition of $2,300. There is always a cost of acquisition. This is a game of math, not magic. And if you want to get off the hamster wheel, stop relying on referrals or cold calling, and actually grow something that gives you freedom, you have to know your numbers, not just cost per lead, cost per deal. That's the number that will scale a business. And once you lock that in, spending more on ads isn't scary anymore. It actually becomes the most predictable part of your business, okay? Now, here's where things get really interesting, because this isn't just about closing deals. This is about stacking incomes in ways that most agents never even think about, okay? So how can you take full advantage of every lead and make more than your competition? Well, when sellers click on our ad, it's because of how we've positioned ourselves, and it's very intentional. We're not saying, hey, you want a home evaluation? We're saying, we're cash buyers. We'll make you an offer. That simple shift changes everything. It speaks directly to the seller who needs to move fast, who doesn't want to deal with the repairs, cleanings, showings. So we hook them with that offer, and they reach out. But once we're on the phone, we don't just show up with one option. We show up with at least two and sometimes three. The cash offer and our listing service. And over the past couple of years, since the market is a little more competitive for sellers, we have our fix and list offering where we'll actually pay to fix up their house, maybe even give them some cash now, and then we get paid at closing for that. That's the conversation, and that's what gets us in the door more than most other agents out there. It's not about which one we push, it's about what's best for the seller. And from there, we book the in-person appointment, okay? That's where we walk them through the options in detail, and that's where the trust really starts to build in the relationship. Now, if you're watching this and thinking, yeah, but I'm not a cash buyer, that's totally fine. I wasn't always either. You don't need to be a cash buyer. You just need to have access to a few of them and know their systems, and it's super easy. Just start calling around or looking for properties that have been flipped recently and call the owners. If you called me in Denver, for example, right now, I could be your buyer. It's that easy. There are tons of cash buyers and investors in every single market, and you can find them in Facebook groups, and that's probably the easiest way. All you need to do is understand their buy box and their calculations for rehabs. You know, sometimes they'll have a square footage number too. For example, like if you were to call me right now and you ask me, hey, how would I know what you'd be willing to offer? I'd tell you this simple equation, and I'd also send you a calculator. And it goes something like this: 80 to 85% of the ARV, meaning the after repaired value, minus the rehab. How much does rehab cost? Well, if it's a full cosmetic job, it's running us about $40 a square foot plus the major systems like roof, sewer, furnace, etc. And within a few minutes, you would know what type of offer we would be willing to accept for a house. Once you know that, you can confidently present a cash offer to a seller, even if you're not writing the check yourself, okay? Just represent the buyer. Now, from there, you also want to figure out what it can sell for in its current condition on the market, right? Generally, a seller would make about 8 to 12% more by having you list it. Why? Because that's the profit margin for most flips, is about 8 to 12%, okay? Still no repairs, still no drama. Just full transparency and honest expectations. And then there's the third option, the one that surprises people the most, and that's what we offer is our fix and list program. This is where we step in, pay for the renovations upfront, manage the whole project, and get reimbursed at closing. And if you want to see how we do this in detail to get more deals, just get on our email list in the description below. Sometimes we even give the seller cash up front if they need to move or get into their next place. And this builds massive trust, because now we're not just listing a property, we're partnering with them to help them sell it for top dollar, and we're doing all the work for them, right? And you can confidently say that this is how they will net the most amount of money, at least in most scenarios, right? And when you present all the options to the seller, it removes a lot of the emotion from the equation. It focuses the solution to their problem back on them and what makes the most sense for them as the seller. And when you do write a deal, the least amount you're going to get paid is for a straight listing. And to show you how we maximize the ROI on every deal we sign, it looks like this. This is what we go through on every single deal that we sign, okay? Let's take a look at a $500,000 house, okay? So we could list it as is, and the commissions are going to be about $14,000, right? And that's a 2.8%. A wholesale deal, so this is where we are representing the buyer and we resell it right after we close, right? Let's say we're the buyer in this case. We make about 20 to 30 grand on average on a typical wholesale deal. We also have our wholesale option. This is where we buy it and just relist it on the MLS with doing very little work. And we typically make about 25 to 35 grand. And then we've got our full fix and flip, right? Which usually makes us about 35 to 50 in Denver. Then we've got our fix and list, which will usually make us about 20 to 40 grand. And that's depending on the size of the overall project, right? And that's how we're consistently making 2 to 3 times more than the traditional commissions on a deal. It's not because we're better salespeople, right? It's because we have more options. So here's the big takeaway. Most agents are running ads that never get a return, okay? They're offering one option, playing one angle, and wondering why they're barely getting by. But then when you start running the right kind of ad, the one that actually speaks to the seller and what the seller wants, and you pair that with multiple ways to solve their problem, that's when you stop feeling like you're chasing deals and you start building a real business. But this was merely one small part of a much bigger picture in real estate. And if this got your wheels turning, you're really going to want to watch this next video. It's a video breaking down the 23 things I wish I knew sooner in my real estate career. And if you watch it, it's going to speed up your learning by years.